how are you feeling today? Like, genuinely, how are you feeling today with everything that's going on?
Oh man, it is such a time. It is such an interesting moment in time. I think that right now, in this moment, I am feeling pretty good. But I'm also need to acknowledge that there's been lots and lots of hard emotions in the last couple of weeks too, which I actually think is pretty important to just sort of allow those difficult emotions to come through. The goal in this moment is not to always be feeling just equilibrium. I think getting some of those bigger feelings up has been important for me lately. So yeah, thanks for asking.
Absolutely. It does mean something to me. If a person shares how they're actually feeling, it helps me vibe with them in a better way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Something similar is going on my end as well. A different kind of transcendence is going on upon me. And my own friend circle is upgrading their own thinking, I would say. So there's a kind of movement that's going on within my age group, 23, 24, 25. The moment is we're moving towards a higher consciousness. A big change is happening. Have you heard about this?
I may have heard a thing or two about it. Yeah, it's certainly happening, and it's happening very fast right now. Have you been feeling in your circle that it's just occurring very quickly?
Yes, absolutely. I have. And I want to talk about this because this is something so strange to talk about. You can't explain it logically, what's going on. If you sit down in front of somebody on a polite tea, you can't explain to them what you're thinking without making them think like you're an idiot, unless they are on the same plane.
Yeah, it's definitely a moment where there's all kinds of opinions flying around, and we don't all have the same opinions. And I think it's becoming clear in people's personal lives. It's like, oh, I never knew that you and me actually felt really different things about this subject. And, It's eye-opening, sometimes in good ways and sometimes in I think, less good ways.
Less good ways, correct, not bad ways. So I think there's a follow-up question to this. How do you feel about people actually coming out with different opinions right now? So you might be seeing a lot of Instagram posts, right, that say, right now it's okay to disagree on food choices, of dressing, of places to hang out, but if you disagree on fundamental human rights issue, then we cannot be friends. Have you seen this one?
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Well, I'm still getting my bearings with that one. I think on one hand, what we're dealing with right now as a humanity, as just a collective right now, is, to use your words, truly it's about human rights. And so I think that there probably are some topics where it's like, okay, well, if we can't see eye to eye on the fact that every human being on this planet deserves the same rights, then maybe we aren't meant to be in each other's lives. Yeah. But then with sort of lesser subjects, I think it's absolutely possible to say, all right, well, I don't necessarily see it completely this way, but I honor that you have a different feeling than I have, a different view, and I also am, I honor what I feel and my perspective as well. So, I guess my answer is it depends.
Absolutely. And I think that's your video's gone, Kristina.
Ooh,
yeah, cool. So that's the only way to answer it correctly, because any other way would be denying yourself the possibility of understanding a concept that you didn't know better before. Because right now, all of us are just getting started to know ourselves, right? Some of us are maybe more self-aware than others. And a lot of people are hearing about being self-aware, developing the observer self, as you speak about often, for the first time ever. I think that's really important.
Yeah. And, that's actually such a good point. We want people to be expanding their level of awareness. And that because that is the end goal, we also need to provide some grace and some compassion if their level of awareness after 2 weeks of practicing, having a conscious expansion, if it's not where we want it to be yet, attacking isn't necessarily the best move, right? Because it's not going to bring that person closer, not necessarily. I think there can be some tough conversations where it's like, listen, you've got to really open up your eyes here. You've got to see this or see that. But, for the most part, the grace and the compassion, it moves us forward.
Absolutely. Tough conversations need to happen. Yes. That's important. And we should be open to it. Don't you think? We should be open to having these tough conversations and initiating it. I think that's where a lot of us are lacking. The ones who are actually self-aware, even they are lacking in the initiation part, because the person ahead of you who you actually want to talk to, who you actually want to change in a way or try to influence, they aren't going to come and talk to you about it because they aren't self-aware that they can be wrong. In their minds, they're right.
I think you're so right. In this moment in time, there's more of a responsibility than ever, actually, to show up to difficult conversations and to your point, to start them, to get them rolling, because it's not always going to be that friend who, doesn't really think about this stuff too much. They're not to speak to what you're saying here. They're not going to be like, oh, hey, let's have this really hard conversation because I think that sounds fun. No, they're going to try and probably avoid it, really.
Absolutely. So, but this requires a lot of observer self-work, because you need to know how to initiate this, and your thoughts, you need to have clarity in your thoughts, right? So let's talk a little bit about this part of consciousness, how to develop our own observer self so that we know ourselves, our own version clearly, and albeit open-minded, we have the courage to actually go ahead and talk to someone else. How to develop this observer self, how to develop this consciousness.
Yeah, it's just such an important subject, because in a lot of ways, or actually maybe all the ways, without the development of that observer self, it's very, very challenging to change, because you're not in the driver's seat of your own experience. You're being run by programming that has come into existence long, long before the present moment. So to begin to develop the observer self, I think, the first thing is intention. I am setting an intention that I am going to start observing myself, observing who I'm being throughout the day, observing the thoughts that I'm having, and observing the feelings that I have. So intention is the first thing. And then really the second thing is just, it's almost logistical. It's like figure out how to remember to do it, because it's a completely new way. And our programming that keeps us on autopilot is so strong. The pull to it is so strong. So building in cues to remind you, like every 2 hours, my cell phone is going to have an alarm that goes off that says, have you been noticing your thoughts? Putting a note on the screen of your laptop, putting a note on the refrigerator. It's like whatever it is, but you need to build in the ways to get yourself to remember to do it, because without that, you're just going to spend the vast majority of your time forgetting to.
That's such a beautiful point. I want to start doing this immediately. Remember yourself, observe yourself, because we put so much onus of that onto ourselves. Sidhant, you got to remember it. If you don't remember it, it's not going to happen. But this is such an easy technique. Use Post-its, man. Use notifications.
Absolutely. Keep it simple.
Yes, keeping it simple. I think that's where I personally need to work. And simple reminded me of something. A lot of my listeners are almost starting out on this journey, right? So of course it starts with setting the intention, and then you keep telling yourself, keep reminders for yourself. What next? Once this is done, and a little bit more about this, okay? When we say observing, right? Some people mistake it as expressing as well. All emotions need to be expressed. This is something people have in mind, because they say, let's say, for example, anger. Anger is a common emotion that people have a difficult time dealing with, right? So a lot of people say, if you have anger, just let it out on whatever you see in front of you. I personally think that's a pretty destructive way to go about it.
You make such a good point. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. I was trying to explain it, but I think you got it.
Yeah, you make such a good point. If you're observing yourself and also expressing everything, you're not truly engaging in the task of observing yourself, because observing yourself involves a level of detachment. So the sort of technical or fancy name for observing yourself is called metacognition. And so meta, what does that mean? It means like high level. It means bird's eye view. So if you're taking a bird's eye view of what's going on with you, there is an inherent level of detachment. So it's just noticing. It's just allowing it to kind of almost come and go and just pass, as opposed to react. And if you're reacting, then I would venture to say that you're not truly observing.
Great tool for anyone who's trying to figure out, who's trying to work on their observer self. Reaction is actually counterintuitive. It's not solving the purpose, it's actually making it worse. So how has your journey been with it? How did you get started into it? Because were you this way since you were born? Was your family this way?
Gosh, no. So, well, my family definitely was not this way.
Right.
My family are lovely people, but we didn't talk about things like this. However, I did know from a young age that I wanted to be a therapist. And so I always learned lots and lots of things about the human psyche and just kind of how we function. And eventually I learned, of course, how to be a therapist. But what was so at this point confusingly missing was this entire topic. Nobody was saying observe yourself so that you can make changes better. Nobody was saying that. Everybody was more saying, let's just keep talking, get your clients talking, you talk, just keep talking, keep emoting, keep expressing. So for a long time, I did not observe myself because it wasn't a part of my, part of my current level of awareness to even do it. It wasn't a thought. So the way that I began was a lot like what I just shared. It was about the intention. It was about so much desire because I knew how badly I wanted to change. And so it's just like, I am going to do this. And then it was about, like I said, just the logistical piece of finding ways to get myself to remember. Mm-hmm. And I would say after about 3 months, I got kind of like a certain level of mastery with it. And about 6 months in, it was like, okay, now I know how to do this. And it's been, ever improving since then. Actually, I know that in another 6 months I'll be even better at it than I am right now, and I imagine in another year I'll be even better at it still. So it's very interesting developing this skill set.
True. And when I hear you, there's one Hindi line that comes to my mind. Would you like to hear it?
Yes, please.
So, "Aap kafi sulji hui ho." Now,
what does that mean?
This means you are quite solved.
You are quite sold?
Solved. SOLVED.
Interesting. Tell me more about what that means for you as it relates to the subject.
Yes. So we say this to people who have figured out a lot of difficult things in life. For example, if an 18-year-old is probably maybe has faced some hardships, has had immense inner journey, right? Has achieved something that people until 25 don't, but 30 don't. Basically, someone who's achieved more than what they look like, or something like that, more than what we can expect of the person.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So
if only I could figure out how to pronounce it, but I wouldn't dare try. At least not when other people might hear
I understand. let's not worry about that. That's probably all right. Anyhow, it's an interesting thing to hear that, because I have a similar thing in my family. None of them are this way. Don't you think it's strange that people out of nowhere, with no family background that has inner work promoted or even spoken about, jump into it out of nowhere and become trainers and explorers? How do you think that happens?
I think some people are called to certain paths. Some people are called to awaken. I remember being very young and people, at the risk of sort of sounding self-serving, because I so don't mean it in this way, but people would often sort of say things to my mother, like, you have an unusual child, or your child, I really want to like talk to her, like sort of just strange things. And I was little, like 9 years old. And, looking back at that now, I think that was just the beginning of me already kind of possessing who it is that I was meant to become. And I believe that is, true for all of us. There's like a soul imprint or something that sort of guides us. And so it doesn't necessarily matter if our families didn't live the way that we're living. It's about something greater than that.
Absolutely. I think that's beautiful. And in your previous point, you mentioned something really interesting: desire. No matter what intention you set, no matter how hard you try, if you do not have a strong enough desire, things become really difficult. Correct. Now, don't think I'm trying to get you into a logical trap here, but there's a slight paradox in what we just spoke about.
In what sense?
Yeah. So even I agree that some people are born with a gift, that they are called upon, they are awakened from within. But at the same time, I personally, at least, want people to become like me in this aspect, because I feel great. I feel less affected by a lot of things, and I want other people to feel this. But at the same time, I do believe that people are called upon as well. And it's kind of a logical paradox.
Well, yes. However, I don't necessarily think that it's just the rare few that are called upon. I think that especially the human beings that are existing on the planet at this moment in time, this 100-year period or whatever, to get specific about it. I think that tons and tons of us are being called. This is truly a mass awakening. And so it's not like, there's like, a few thousand of us and we're the ones who've been called. This is on a global level. And, to the people who maybe don't have that calling, I don't necessarily think that they also can't awaken. It just might look really different, and the path might unfold differently.
But do you have any signs that people can notice when they are on the path, they are naturally being awakened, which maybe you noticed, and then you thought, okay, let's double down on this?
Curiosity. If you can just, notice that you've become curious. Well, so I'm seeing these things on Instagram that talk about awakening, or that talk about 3D versus 5D, or just like, anything that kind of just sparks your curiosity or your interest a little bit. It's like, that is a sign that you are perhaps aligning with the path. And then the way to sort of get more aligned with it is to give it more attention. What you put your focus on, it grows, it expands, you're giving it energy. Yes. And so to really lean into that curiosity.
I think we are now diving into manifestation. The more energy you give to something, the more it expands. Yeah. How did manifestation turn out for you in your career so far? Right now, are you a full-time therapist? Or?
No, I'm no longer practicing as a therapist, with the exception of a few clients who I've had for many years that I've just kind of taken with me because I love them, they love me. But beyond that, no, I've now moved into the realm of transformation, and so my main focus at the moment is on creating a program. But I've also worked with lots of clients as well, and manifestation is something that I think sort of factors in various ways for different people. Mm-hmm. For some people who are kind of going through a transformation, I think it becomes more important. And for other people, it's sort of, it's almost a thing that kind of occurs akin to or simultaneous to the transformational process, but it kind of happens naturally, as opposed to with the same level of purposeful, conscious attention.
But when you say transformation, what exactly do you mean?
When I say transformation, I mean you're not going to look the same in a year. I don't mean physically. I mean, the way you are experienced by people when they are in the room with you, you'll feel different to them. You will feel different to yourself. Your thoughts will be different. Your emotional experience, life will be different. And therefore, with that, oftentimes the external environment changes as well. Sorry, did that answer your question?
Interesting. I'm intrigued by one very important part: how you are received by people. I think you used a similar word there. So I think this is about our vibrations, our auras, if I'm not wrong, correct? I think that matters when you're talking well, when you're consuming good stuff, your vibration rises. It goes high. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. So, basically the vast majority of transformation, even though you may see some people talk about some more external stuff like transforming relationships, transforming your career, things of that sort, the vast majority of it really relates to your thoughts and your feelings. And thoughts and feelings ultimately inform your energetic frequency, your vibrational frequency. So when somebody experiences you differently, what they're really experiencing is a shift in your energy. But what we are working with in order to shift that energy is changing our thoughts and changing our emotions.
Interesting. So how would you say thoughts and emotions are correlated? Do you think emotions happen first or thoughts? Because still, science just has theories on it. And spirituality has various explanations. Yeah.
I think that there's a natural back and forth that occurs. However, in day-to-day life, in most instances, in day-to-day life, thoughts are going to inform lots and lots of our emotions. To give you an example, if you just, something that happened a couple of weeks ago at work, you just got reminded of it, and then you spent 5 minutes, or maybe even less, maybe more, but it doesn't take very long, just sort of going over it again and again in your head. And all of a sudden it's like you've become contracted, you're like physically contracting, you're becoming angry again because you're mad at what that person said. You have created an emotional experience based on thoughts.
Yes. Correct. So your physiology also changes. You see physiological signs. Do you work with physiological signs as well?
Yeah. I think it's very, very important. Noticing what's occurring in the body gives us a great deal of insight. It's like, the biggest ones for me, but I think it can be a little bit different for everybody, is I'll immediately notice either a tightness in my chest, a constriction in my stomach, almost that kind of gut feeling, or my shoulders will start to like hunch. I'll become actually like shorter. And those are such important signs, because even if I'm not doing a good enough job in that moment of really tuning into what's going on with my thoughts, which hopefully I am, but sometimes, you're just not going to be.
We're human.
Those physical signs, right? We're human, we're flawed. But those physical signs that our bodies are showing us, they end up kind of acting as another cue to tune back into what's going on with the thinking. If I'm feeling constricted in my chest, if I'm feeling a lump in my throat, a weird feeling in my stomach, it's going to now remind me to notice what's going on with my thinking.
And how does anyone go about looking at these signs? Does this all stem in developing the observer self? Does it happen naturally, or is it something we should do consciously?
I think that it does all relate back to developing your observer self. It's noticing the thoughts, it's noticing your feelings, and it's noticing your physical being as well, right? Like, we're not just, floating heads. We have a body, and the body is, it provides all kinds of information to us in many, many forms. We have nervous systems that are constantly, shifting and changing throughout the day based on what's happening. So by kind of tuning turning up the volume of awareness on those different things, you just gain a whole new level of insight, of course, into what's actually happening with you. So yes, it's very much intentional. None of this is just going to happen. It's like, let me make the choice day after day after day to keep tuning in, to keep paying attention. It really is a choice, though. If I wanted to become unconscious again, I don't know that I could become fully unconscious, but because I've done too much work. But if there's a day where I'm like, screw it, I'm going to watch TV all day, drink a bottle of wine and, not move my butt off the couch, then I made a different choice and I'm not going to be as conscious that day.
Right. I love the terminology you're using. I love the way you visualize awareness. Turn the volume down on awareness. I've heard that for the first time, and I think that's beautiful. Turning the volume up and down on awareness. I think a lot of people need to listen that. It's not going to be the same every day. It's like a wave. You don't have to work equally hard every day. It can go up and down. Turn the volume up, turn the volume down.
Yeah, and sometimes throughout the day, So, I'll give you an example. The other day I was on a Zoom call with my in-laws and, we're chatting, we're talking about, what's been happening in the world, whatever, all the different things. And then my dogs got into a little altercation and it sprung me out of the present moment because I wasn't necessarily paying too much attention to my thoughts in that moment. I was being present to the conversation, but it took me out of the conversation and I immediately started noticing my thoughts. And the reason that is because I have been training myself that when something kind of heightened happens, I need to kick back in to a more heightened state of awareness. So, in that moment, I was able to realize, okay, so wow, you're actually now freaking out and you're thinking that the dog is having internal bleeding and you're going down a rabbit hole. And I noticed myself do it within 30 seconds. So it's like, I've conditioned myself, as I said, to be able to turn the volume up and turn the volume down. It's like a gradient.
Absolutely. Again, the terms that you're using, it's beautiful to visualize, like a gradient, turning the volume up and down. And it makes me feel great to see that this habit can be developed over time. It becomes a natural response. Instead of reacting, you automatically start responding to events that happen around you. And I think a lot of us need to get there. I believe so. But again, so I texted you today about the emotion, dealing with hard emotions, right? A lot of people have been coming to me with this topic. So most of them have gone breakups. 22, 23, this is a common thing. It's painful. It's painful to go through it. I understand. And how would you say we deal with it? The first thing I say is be aware of it. Right? Be aware of what you actually need. Go to the depths of it. Ask why questions. Why do you miss him? Right? What's actually behind it? Do you miss the idea of him? Do you miss spending time with someone watching Netflix? What do you miss? But still, I think I fail somewhere in addressing that emotional aspect. What would you say to that?
Well, I think that you make a very good point. Again, this idea of curiosity. We want to always be curious about what's going on with us because the more we understand, the more ultimately liberated we are. Mm-hmm. But I also think that allowing feelings to be is really so important. So kind of leaning into them for a while. Not too long, not forever. You don't want to lean in indefinitely and then get stuck in them, but you want to really allow yourself to fully feel it as much as you can. So, that might mean allowing yourself to really, have that big cry, have a few big cries. It might mean, venting, getting it out to a friend or a therapist, or journaling about it. But the idea is to process as fully as possible, because when we process, there's a natural releasing that occurs. It's process, release, process, release, process, release. And so the goal is always to allow it to move through you and to be careful that you're not using your thoughts to replay the same stuff again and again and again, because your thoughts, if you allow them to, will basically re-trigger the emotional experience over and over and over. And then you'll be in a loop, which is no fun. And I'm sure lots of folks know what that feels like.
Yeah, I know what that feels like. I've been there recently.
Me too.
I think that's part of being human. You have to face that. I think it's if you play games, it's the next step to you level up. That's something you have to do. It's a quest that you need to fulfill before leveling up. You need to go through some heartbreaks before getting somewhere. And
it is a dog doing yoga. My mother got it for me.
That's
as
insane.
A gift, and it cracks me up.
Science and spirituality. As I told you, recently I spoke with James Ross. He is a spiritual healer, and he is clairvoyant. He has clairaudience, and he basically is a medium, and he can talk to spirits and give out the messages. And his whole mission is to make these messages as accurate and as possible, as far away from you are going to be successful in 10 years, I can see it, the spirit tells me, from that to you need to do X and Y, so and so is going to happen. He wants to make it that accurate. That is his mission. Right? But he talks to spirits. How does this line make you feel? What's your first reaction to it?
Well, I love that you're asking that question. Such a good question. My first reaction is I absolutely believe that is a reality for some folks. I've known people, I've been in the presence of people who have made it so abundantly clear that that's what is occurring. There's no way to not believe it. So yeah, I mean, while my personal message that I share, I try and be the bridge between science and spirituality. And I think it's very difficult to get science to figure this out with science, yes. Right? But it is very much something that I do believe in, though.
You do. So I'm from India. India, every 100 kilometers or 100 miles. Sorry for using kilometers.
No worries.
Anyway, so every 100 miles you go, you find a new guru, or guru is a different term. Sadhu. Guru just means teacher. A sadhu. Sadhu means someone who is a mystic, who has something spiritual going on about him. India is a land filled with such mystics. Correct. Each one coming with their own special set of spiritual techniques. One interesting thing to notice, however, is science is a faculty of logic, correct? A lot of it is driven by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Uncertainty principle is nothing but you cannot make out a particle's time and where it is. Sorry, the velocity and where is it in that particular moment at the same time. You cannot calculate it. You cannot be accurate with it. It is proven. It's called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. These two things cannot be calculated simultaneously. That's the entire thing. Right? Now, this is where science is saying that anything is scientifically, mathematically possible at any point of time. However, it's highly improbable, but it is possible. Now, this is science on one side. And on the other, it completely shuns out spirituality, because spirituality, again, it's a completely different realm. You can't understand spirituality with these 5 senses here. What do you use to make sense of spirituality?
Well, so for me, I was able to embrace spirituality for the very first time, in my early 30s, really by having an awakening. It was like it happened to me. And so with that, there were certain things I had to accept I wouldn't be able to, quote unquote, prove. And so with that, I also knew it was undeniable. It was undeniable that something was in motion, something was occurring. And so it allowed me to begin to trust in what spirituality is, what it means, and what it feels like. The reason, though, why I focus a lot of my teachings on the science of bridging the gap between science and spirituality is because not everybody will have that awakening, or they just might not have it right now. And I don't think that people should have to wait to have the awakening. If I could go back in time and redo things, I wish that, a decade ago, if not, much longer, I would have sort of come to believe certain things, but that it didn't happen until it happened for me. So I use science to try and demonstrate to people that there are things in play in this universe that we can't necessarily see. Well, we definitely can't see them, but it doesn't mean they're not there.
Yeah, I think we can use that line for a lot of things that's happening today.
Yeah.
But you said you had to accept a few things. Would you like to share what they were? Before getting into spirituality, you said you had to accept a few things.
I don't remember what I was referring to.
All right.
Ooh. Yeah, sorry, I don't remember exactly what I was thinking.
No worries, but about your journey, because I think this is important. People need to be able to relate to a journey or understand a journey. For example, I'll share my journey. Until class 10th or 11th, which is 10 plus 1, has to be a high achiever, who's good at sports. I was basically the ideal child a parent could want. The one where other parents say, okay, you got to be like him. That was my dream was to be a software engineer. that's pretty stereotypical, but that was my dream. I used to dream of that and cricketer. That's pretty common in India. Software engineer as well, but anyway, so that was my dream. Okay, let's do that. And then I came across this wonderful book called Steve Jobs is the Man Who Thought Different by Karen Blumenthal. So this was a shortened version of his autobiography. This changed my life. The most important thing Steve said was, don't live your life in dogma. Right? That is based on, don't live your life based on someone else's thinking. That's where my curiosity started. I'm like, holy shit, I have been doing that. My dreams are someone else's thinking. My entire dream is someone else's thinking. And that's horrible. That's where it all started. And then the worst part, it all went downhill from there. Because
it went downhill in what way? I'm just curious.
Yes, it went downhill in my personal life. So as I told you, I was the kid who other parents would say, be like him. From that high achiever to I stopped caring about these things. They didn't even matter to me anymore. I'm like, okay, this is not my thing. I just don't feel aligned with it. I don't want to study maths, physics, and chemistry to that level. It's just not me. Although I have the capability to do it, that's just not me. This voice was louder. As I kept talking to myself, this voice kept getting louder. No, explore, no, discover, move ahead. Think other things. Then I started reading more books. Started talking to more... I started watching more mystical gurus. Right. And the problem with that is a lot of people say they take their words for something that is set in stone. But I think I was lucky that I took them as only directions. Right. Okay. So this is how you have to think. So all I did was changed my mindset from how school used to teach, which is what to think. I changed it from that to how to think. That's it.
I love that. Such an important shift.
That's it. And then things started happening by themselves. I lived in the jungle for a while. That was really fun. Doing all these things and exploring what I wanted to, a few impulsive decisions, trying to go completely opposite of what I used to be. I used to be a very careful person, never doing something impulsive, except anger. I had a lot of it. The only impulsive thing I used to do was be angry. But then, as I told you, I became opposites. So whenever I was angry, I used to be completely in the moment. as less impulsive as possible. That even made me like a rodent for a moment where I didn't react to anything. This was the journey. I was trying to balance out the waves. Don't be too angry. Okay, be not angry at all. Not impulsive, completely impulsive. So many mistakes made. I think this was my journey, trying to bring these closer to this alignment. And this is where I'm balancing now. Trying to jump.
Yeah, what you're talking about in a big way is about the journey of releasing your conditioning. Really letting go of how you've been taught to function and figuring out how you wanted to function, which really, we all have the ability to do that. How do I want to be existing in the world, as opposed to just how do I exist in the world? It's like we can get in control of that. And when we do, that's when actually things get really fun. That's when we can start creating.
Yes, absolutely. And in creating, I found the wonderful gift of manifestation as well. Even Jobs spoke about it. And Conor McGregor is a big guy on manifestation. Are you aware of his take on it? I think he's more into visioning work, Conor McGregor. So what he does before...
I know that name. I'm not very familiar
he's
with
an
his
MMA
work,
fighter.
Though. I'll have to check him out.
He's an MMA fighter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he says that before every fight, I visualize what kind of punch I'm going to throw at him, how I'm going to pick up the medal, how hard I'm going to hit him, because that's his goal, right? To win the match. And if you look at him, he doesn't look like a winner in the first look, but then he starts walking, then he starts talking, his body language, everything is aligned to what he wants to do. Do you think this works? Do you think visualizing something before going into it, even your life, let's say you have dreams, do you think it works? And how to actually make it work? Because a lot of people talk about it, but then they get it wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, our minds, they naturally work in pictures. So, the really simple way to illustrate that is, one, earlier I was using language that you were like, I love that there's a visual. You were naturally drawn to the fact that I was helping your mind to see something. So that in and of itself is a brilliant example. But, for example, if I say, think about how do I want to say this? If, for example, I say the words, your bed, you're not going to see the words spelled out, your bed. You're going to just see a picture of your bed. Yeah. Same thing for your kitchen sink. Right now you're seeing your kitchen sink. Yeah. Same thing for your refrigerator. Now you're seeing your refrigerator. It's like the brain naturally works that way. So when we insert pictures, it becomes integrated into our subconscious mind. And so separate from the fact that, this is sort of a big piece of manifestation, working with a vision is a part of manifestation, separate from any of that. Even if you can't get down with manifestation, this is neuroscience. This is the study of the brain. And so it's easy to believe in that, or at least easier, because it's back into that realm of science. This is how the brain works. And so it's extremely impactful as a technique.
Done. Yeah, I think on that powerful technique, we've already come up to 1 hour almost, and I didn't feel like it. It's been an hour since we've been speaking. It's been wonderful. And I think we discussed a lot of important issues here. All right, a lot of it couldn't be touched due to time differential. However, I hope that we can connect next time on a lot of these topics as well. Right. My favorite ones, I'll tell you, was how you made me visualize. I loved that part. I'll be honest with you. That's something that really moved me, and I personally will try to make more content on that as well. I think.
Awesome. Thank you. I really enjoyed talking with you, so I'd love to do this again.
Awesome. Happy to know that. And listeners, for sure, please go ahead and follow Kristina at Your New Frequency. Correct? And
you got it.
You can follow me as well at Sidhant Kisshor. But first, you've got to follow Kristina, right? Because her page is insanely beautiful. She has way more to offer at the moment than I do. And then your visioning work, your consciousness work, she has some amazing posts in that. I'm a regular follower. Keep checking up on her, on those posts. I love them myself, and you should too. And on that note, thank you so much, Kristina, for being here, for showing us your amazing dog. Please don't forget. Please don't forget to tell me where you got him from. I'm gonna buy immediately. He's one of my favorite parts of this podcast. I'm not gonna lie. All right.
I'll let my mother know. She will be thrilled.
He's not number one, but he's top 3 for sure.
I support that.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, happy to know that. All right, bye-bye.